So what I'm seeing is people who are pro-Palestine, they are choosing retaking the land over the safety of the people. And that's troublesome for me personally, and I would like an explanation of that.
Israel is like, I would say, committing war crimes against the people of Palestine.
And you're watching all the devastation and your heart just hurts, right? Like seeing all that happen.
Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican, so I identify with the Palestinian people.
Israel should not have a land, or they should not have a land in Palestine specifically.
They shouldn't have a land. They can't.
It's like, should the Jewish people have a land somewhere? Like, let's say a
Uh,
country wants to bring them in, and let's say it's
yeah,
the size of like Manhattan, like something
yeah,
small. Would you be open to them having a land that way?
yeah.
Have you heard of pay for slay?
No,
Pay for slay is in Gaza. You get money, your family gets money if you kill a Jew.
they are like, I didn't know the thing that you said about the pay for slay. I didn't know that, but I can't believe that. Like, I won't believe that every civilian living there feels the same way as the
and
extremists
and that's the
do.
problem, and that's the problem because there are good people who actually don't have those viewpoints, and they get stuck in the crossfire. Hamas is perfectly okay with using the civilians to accomplish that and using them as human shields. The fact that you're offering that support, I think it shows me that there's still hope and we can still have a peaceful solution. Again, you could be as careful as you want with your answers, and you could take your time with your answers too. I'm trying to have a process where both opposing sides could get what they want. For that to happen, we both need to have a common goal. I noticed that speaking to certain pro-Palestine people, they care less about the Jews and more about the Palestinian people. And that's okay. I can't force anybody to think a certain way. But we still need to have a common goal. So I'm okay with the preservation of Palestinian life. In fact, I would want them to stop dying from the bombings caused by Israel. I would love that to happen. And I would like no more civilian Palestinian deaths. Is that a common goal that at the moment me and you could agree on, or do you prefer a different common goal?
Yeah, I would say that that's a common goal.
Okay, one.
In my opinion, what's best is to, like, no casualties on either side, but since one side is actively being like hurt more, well, and that side is Palestine, well, I would rather have all the Palestinians, be safe.
Okay. So you're saying that the other side is being hurt more, the Palestinians are being hurt more, and I want to say that it's very unfortunate all the casualties that are going on the Palestinian side. You see the news, you see the families who are just in pain because some of their family members have been murdered. And I've actually I didn't have enough of the Palestinian perspective, especially pro-Palestine perspective, and so I wanted to interview people, and I went to protest, and none of the pro-Palestine people wanted to talk to me, which was annoying. So I had a sign that said, we'll talk to a pro-Palestinian perspective. And I had a Palestinian homeless man who came up to me. He was from Palestine, and he said he had 7 family members who died in the bombings. So, and I never believed, not never, but I always took the Palestinian Authority's numbers, the Ministry of Health, with a grain of salt. I'm like, okay, 10,000, not 10,000, like 5,000 people died. Could I believe that? But then after he told me that, it's like, all right. And then after watching all the videos that happened, the destruction, like the nighttime bombings and everything, especially like the 2 days after the October 7th massacre, I was like, that's very painful to watch. And I don't want more of that. So when you say that they're being, it seems like they're being killed at like greater numbers and are going through all the tragedy that's going on there, I'll agree with you there. Okay. Um, so the way that so now that we have a common goal, this is what I usually like to do. I want to get your full perspective, like your full perspective on the conflict, and then I will tell you, I'll try to paraphrase it. I want to make sure you feel understood, and then I will tell you my full perspective. And then we could start working through like what the hell could we do about this? This whole interview thing, this is just how do we stop the violence? What could we do? If the answer is kill all the Jews, we could discuss that. Like if that's literally if that like I don't mind discussing that. Like I'm Jewish, but if you think that's the solution, like I do not mind having that discussion. Maybe I don't agree with it, but we could find a common solution. There's that. So here, all right, go ahead. I'd like to hear your full perspective, and I'll try to understand you.
Well, my full perspective is that, like what's happening is it's a complete genocide, and it's such a shame how like the US is siding with Israel, and I can see why, because they've been they've been funding them like billions of dollars. I don't have like the exact number, but I know that it's in the billions. And it's just a shame how the US is always like, oh, like we're doing this for freedom and peace. And then like, they support a settler, like they're supporting they're supporting the Jewish people. Well, like not all the Jews agree with what Israel is doing, and that's something very important. Like I know a couple of Jewish people that they don't agree with what the very like strict ones are saying, and like I just think that they just have to, like, Israel has to step out of what's happening in Gaza, and other people have to step in and actually help the Palestinians, because at first, like, the main problem here is that Israel is like constantly, like, I would say, committing war crimes against the people of Palestine. But excuse me. But oh, I'm in a meeting right now. I'm in a meeting right now. I can't talk right now. Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, so are you in Union Square or?
No, I'm in Washington Square Park, and
Oh
someone just
yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Are you getting anything that I'm saying?
No, I'm getting everything. And I'm writing
Okay.
things down too.
Okay. Well, yeah. Like, I just think that like that's the main cause, but we also have to help the people of like the U.S. can't be spending so much money on the state that's like they're committing war crimes. Like, it's not even about, like, sure, they can disguise it as being like, oh, we're trying to get rid of Hamas, but that's not the truth. They're harming more civilians than, like, I guess what their like main, like, how they're hiding what they're doing is like, it's just so crazy.
And you're watching all the devastation, and your heart just hurts, right? Like seeing all that happen.
Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican, so I identify with with the Palestinian people, because the US, they test, like, the bombs that they're throwing in in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip. Those bombs were tested in Vieques, and that's an island in Puerto Rico. Like, my people had to go through the experimentation process, and then like the US is like, okay, let's just support Israel. Let's give them all these military fundings, all these weapons and shit. And, like, it hurts me, because I feel like if the Puerto Ricans try to like rebel against the US, that's what's gonna happen to us, and that did happen to us. So that's why I'm 100% pro the Palestinians. Like, it's not even about religion; it's about the Zionists.
Hmm. And just so I'm clear, Zionism, do you feel like Israel should not have a land, or they should not have a land in Palestine specifically?
They shouldn't have a land. They can't occupy a space that's already occupied. Like it's
No, what I mean is like, should the Jewish people have a land somewhere? Like, let's say a
uh
country wants to bring them in, and let's say it's
yeah,
the size of like Manhattan, like something
yeah,
small. Would you be open to them having a land that way?
yeah.
So
If
I'll tell
it's
you
in a
where,
peaceful
yeah.
way, yeah.
So I'll tell you where I agree. So the Muslims, they occupied Palestine, I think like 1,000 years ago, maybe more, maybe more. It was the Romans, and I think the Muslims took it from the Romans, and then the Ottomans took it over too. So it's a mix of a lot of um, people, but it doesn't. I don't think that just because the Israelis were there 2,000 years ago, because they were there first. Like I don't see how that gives you an excuse to just say, okay, well, we were there 2,000 years ago, so it has to be our land. They could have, like, the Muslims. We know that the Muslims don't like a different majority. They don't like Christian majorities, like what there's in like Lebanon, and they don't like Jewish majorities especially. So they don't want any other religious majority in wherever they're occupying. So um, I I don't like why. Yeah, the British allowed it, but like nobody saw this problem happening, that the two religions couldn't get together. It's like, no, you had to negotiate before you go in. So I don't really agree with that, but what I do see as a need for is a state for the Jewish people, because of what we're seeing in Europe, what we're seeing in like in Russia when they're trying to find Jews, like because there's Muslim areas in Russia, and in the United States, like menorahs are being torn down and everything. So it's like the Jewish people, I feel like we need to make them feel. There's two things that we could do. We can make them feel safe around the world, like in the United States, and like less persecution against them in Europe. And if we cannot do that for them as a protection mechanism, they will come together. They will come together, and we would need to find a land where, like a country, or like we could separate a certain land for them. That's my opinion, and I like that you said that. Okay, if like somebody's willing to give them a land and everybody agrees on it, you're okay with that.
Mhm.
Um, okay, okay, you could continue with your perspective.
Yeah, like I recently moved to New York. Like in Puerto Rico, I would say that like the Jewish community isn't like that big. But once I moved here to New York, I saw how the Jewish community is. How like if you step into like Brooklyn, there's like a huge like Jewish community there. Like the presence is there. So like I think that if they just like get together like that, but at like a bigger scale, like they wouldn't have to be committing like Israel wouldn't have to be committing the genocide that they're committing in Gaza because they want to claim that land again.
I'm sorry. Like I heard what you said, but could you just like explain that more? Because it
Yeah,
seems like you're
like
looking for a solution. So like I just like for you to,
yeah.
yeah, explain that again.
That like I'm trying to think of like what like the perfect place would be.
Oh, we don't have to think about that like fully yet. Right now, we're just getting your perspective and then mine. Like, and then we'll talk about that. Like, trust me, right now, thinking about that is just going to be too much. But I think, like, yeah,
Yeah.
towards the end, we could think about that more. So yeah, you could continue telling me your perspective fully.
Yeah. Well, I also like I don't like I like my heart hurts at the fact that they are repeating history, like what the Jews, what they went through during the Holocaust with the Nazis. Like they're repeating that with the people of Gaza. Like how that's like the thing that hurts me the most, that we don't learn from history, or at least like I don't know. Like I guess that it like it's not about the same thing, because it's not like, oh, like we have to purify the race because they're not the same like race, like they're different people, but they're still like trying to purify the country by getting rid of them and then them taking over. And I don't I don't know. I agree. Like I can't agree with Israel on that.
Well, we don't have to take that step. You know, we don't have to agree with what Israel. Honestly, like I feel like I'm pretty pro-Israel. I don't even agree with this, but not because honestly, not because of the civilian deaths. It's mostly because is this gonna work? Is it gonna work to stop the bombings of Israel, which is what happened in 2021 and 2023? Is it gonna stop the rockets from firing from Gaza? No, because Palestine has been having too much funding from Iran and even the UN. So they're too well funded, and even Israel is funding Gaza. Like they're sending them a lot of money too, which they don't have to, but they do it because they're occupying it right now. They're not occupying anymore, but they have a embargo placed, and they're controlling the airways. Okay, um, so and it seems like you're saying like yeah, the Jews were oppressed, but it doesn't give them the excuse to genocide the Palestinians at this moment.
Yeah, no. Because what's happening in Palestine, like that's with the people, like that's why I'm saying that the first thing that has to happen is that Israel has to stop intervening. So like my solution is such a crazy solution that I know like it would never happen. And it's like what's happening in Gaza, like why there's so much like inter terrorism is that the government is mainly ruled by Hamas. Like those are the people in charge, and they've been at war with themselves. You know, like Hamas against the other resistance group, and yeah, like Hamas is like it's not the majority of the people, but since it's the tyranny that's in place, then
Just I'm sorry to cut you off, but just so we're clear about this, Hamas is not the entirety of the people, but there are no pro there I don't think that there are any two-state solution groups in Palestine, and I don't think that there are any groups in Palestine that want peace with Israel. So there's like Hamas and there's other groups, but all of them want war with Israel. So just we I think we have to be clear about that. If you can name me a group in Gaza that wants peace with Israel through a two-state solution, um, then that would be good. You could tell me now, but I don't think that there is one. So I've watched so many interviews with the Palestinian people. I've heard very I've heard things that like warm my heart. Like civilians saying like, "Hey, we just want peace. We don't care what it is. If it's a two
the
state or
people
one
want.
state, we don't care." Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of it. Um, and it shocks me too because I've been propagandized to believe like they're all terrorists and stuff, and now I know for a fact that they're not. I know for a fact that they're not. But I've also seen so many. Honestly, the majority of people say that this is our land, and if we have to martyr our people, we have to martyr our civilians, our children, for us to take back this land, we'll do it. And it shocks me that even though I'm pro-Israel, I care more about the Palestinian civilians. I care about them more than a lot of the Palestinians because I don't want any more death. And they're just saying like, oh, those kids who get bombed by Israel, they're martyrs. And like they're like, well, why should we have the kids in front of? Why should we have the kids as human shields in these residential buildings? And they don't say, well, we shouldn't do that. Some of those, not all of them, but some of those Palestinian civilians are saying like, well, they're just going to be martyred, and it's going to bring the world to unite against the Jews. And I'm like, why? Why do that? They're kids. They're civilians. Maybe you could move them aside or something. So why is it that I'm a pro-Israel person, but I care about them more than the Palestinian people? So that bothers me personally. Um, Okay, I'm sorry. You want Israel to stop intervening. You want Israel to stop intervening, and you said you had a crazy solution. What was it?
Yeah, that the people that actually like have like the same viewpoint as you and I, you know, like to just like you know, like stop the murder. I don't know which states they are, like not states, like which countries they are, but I feel like I don't like again, like I don't think it's the best solution. It's like ideal, but if we could get together a resistance group, like a huge numbered militia to kind of like, you know, like not exterminate because that's not the best word to use, but just to get like, you know, like provide like let's let the people that want to go, like let's try to help them, and let's say like the militia enters the country and then they go like door to door being like, oh, like we're trying to like help the people resist against what's happening, you know, like it's gonna take some time because the people are afraid of the Hamas. But if everyone can just join together, I feel like they could get rid of Hamas. Therefore, like,
Get rid of Hamas? No. Um, okay, not no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is your time. I'm sorry. Okay. So you're saying go door to door in Gaza to get rid of Hamas? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that's why I said it's like the craziest solution. Like, it's not gonna work. But I'm saying that if you get rid of the terrorist group that is like, you know, like they're oppressing their people, like they're oppressing the Palestinians. If you get rid of them, then the Palestinian people will be like, they'll be okay. Like,
I'm glad
yeah,
that you're talking about this, and I'm glad that right now your brain is looking for solutions. So that's better than just saying like, kill all the Israelis or kill all the Palestinians, something like right now. And then you're also thinking like, where would be a good place for like the Jews to be where they're safe? Like, I'm glad that you're looking for that. Um, the resistance group idea. In Ukraine, they have like the coalition of the willing or something. Like they have Russia's using troops from like Syria and like Chechnya. Is everything okay there?
yeah, no, there was just like a weird person passing by. So,
Yeah, you got to be careful. Watch the
yeah,
Fisker Park. Yeah. Um, so in Ukraine, Russia's having its military from different countries, but also U.S. and like European troops. I'm sorry, volunteers are there too. So I see where your head is going there. Again, we could discuss that like a little
yeah.
later, but it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought. Um, what else would you like to say? Or yeah, what else would you like to say?
Honestly, like, I just don't get why we don't treat this the same, that like not we, because personally, like I identify fully as Puerto Rican, but why the US is like siding, like why don't we intervene the same way that they're doing it in Ukraine? Like, why isn't, because there's not the same like motive, because the US is against Russia, so therefore they rather support like Ukraine.
The US
So
is
that's
against Iran also in this situation. This would be a way
Mhm.
to get Iran to do something stupid and start a war with Iran, and they see it as a major threat, and they could use Israel and its military power because it's one of the most powerful militaries. Um, so this might be about Gaza. This might be a false flag, and maybe Israel allowed that October 7th to happen, or maybe they didn't, and they actually did bring down the security in around the border, and it was a just a an attack that happened out of nowhere, and none of the CIA or Mossad, they didn't see it. So um, you're upset that the United States, which is the number one global power, you're upset that it's siding with Israel instead of siding with Palestine, correct?
Oh, I would say yeah, but it goes beyond that.
In what way?
Like it's not really like the US isn't like choosing sides right now. Like it's been pro-Israel for like lots of presidencies, even before Obama. Like they've been donating money to Israel. So come on, girlfriend. I don't think the US is like blatantly against like the people of Palestine, but it's more of like strategic. Like it's a war strategy. Like you said, like if Iran does something stupid, well, we're gonna be repeating another like whole Afghanistan and all of that.
Right now, the way what I'm seeing is right now we're in a third world war, except this fifth generation warfare. So I see China and the United States fighting for power. I see both. I see the United States using Ukraine, and then I see China using Russia. I see the war in the Middle East also as a fight for power. I think the United States sees China, Russia, and the Middle East as like they're all trying to gain power, and let's take them out right now. That's what I'm seeing. And I think both the Israelis and the Palestinians are caught in the middle. I think they're both being used. Um, and there's a lot of people who actually would benefit from a war in the Middle East. Um, so we want to stop the Palestinian deaths. Let me see if I understand your argument correctly. You are upset the U.S. is sending aid to Israel. You're upset that they're siding with Israeli people. You believe that there's a genocide going on, um, and there are war crimes going on, and it's just terrible to see those. You don't want to see more civilian death. You identify with Palestinian people, especially since you're Puerto Rican and you understand that, like, if you resist, sometimes there are consequences to that. They're repeating history, and Israel has to stop intervening. Um, it's an interesting concept about getting rid of Hamas. I personally don't agree that it would work, but it's an interesting concept. I like it. Um, More resistance is only going to lead to the other side getting more aggressive. So the more aggressive Israel gets, the more aggressive the Islamic State will get, and even Hamas. So that's a big fucking problem. And the more aggressive Hamas gets, the more they teach their children in public schools that you have to kill Israelis. Have you heard of pay for slay?
No.
Pay for slay is in Gaza. You get money. Your family gets money if you kill a Jew, and if you die, your family also gets money. It's on top of like different other pensions or whatever other social support, and it's an actual program. I don't know who's funding it. I don't know if Iran's funding it or if the UN is funding it, because the UN they have a program just for Gaza and Palestine. It's the only country that has its own refugee payments. Everybody, all the other countries, they only have one other system for them. So yeah, there's something called pay for slay. And a lot of this happened after 2005 when Israel left the occupation. They pulled out all their troops. They pulled out, I think, like 10,000 Israeli civilians, which, one, why the hell were you there anyway? Like, you have to, like, you wanted the two-state solution, don't have settlements. I'll agree with you there. I know you don't like the whole settlement system. I don't like it either. So they left, and after that, that's when Hamas came into power, and then they started indoctrinating little kids that you have to kill Jews, and they have money that supports that too. So if you have the population learning to hate Jews, and if you program somebody under the age of 7, they have no choice but to believe that because of there are different explanations for it. One is like your brain is in a theta state, so it just whatever you say believes it. Like that's why kids believe Santa Claus. Another one is like the methylation process. Another one is like you just need to learn. You're like a sponge when you're a kid. So all these kids who are learning to hate the Jews, they're growing up that way. And even if you don't directly attack a Jewish person, you don't directly send the missiles, you're going to be advocating for that to happen. And if you have enough people advocating for that, advocating for sacrificing family members for taking back the land, what's going to happen is there will be terror attacks, and the other side, Israel, will attack back. So what I'm seeing is people who are pro-Palestine, they are choosing retaking the land over the people, over the safety of the people. And that's troublesome for me personally, and I would like an explanation of that. Or yeah, I would like to understand that a little further, because I notice every pro-Palestine person cares about the land more than the people. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, personally, like I don't view it that way. I see it more like the people. I see more like I see more like the civilians are being hurt by the current government, that's not like by the Hamas, like they're they're hurting the civilians. So to me it's not really about the land, it's just like what's happening right now. Like I just think that it's like what's happening inside Gaza, like if they are like, I didn't know the thing that you said about the pay for slay. I didn't know that, but I can't believe that. Like I won't believe that every civilian living there feels the same way as the extremists
And that's
do.
the problem. And that's the problem, because there are good people who actually don't have those viewpoints, and they get stuck in the crossfire. And you're right, not every single person feels that way. We don't, and the numbers they could, we don't know exactly what the numbers are, especially because people are biased on both sides. I try to find the numbers, but I'm skeptical about it too. So for example, I looked at a pro-Palestine website, um, and it didn't show how many people are okay with killing Jewish civilians. I saw one of that too. It was around 50%. But on that pro-Palestine website, it said that 50% of the people in Palestine support a third intifada, which is not. I talked to a person. He thought that intifada means rock throwing. No, it means killing as many Jews as possible until their submission, which it's okay if you want to kill as many Jews as possible to get what you want. By the way, they did in the second one. They actually did get what they want, which was in 2005, the Israelis leaving. So it worked. But if your goal is to kill just as many Jews as possible to get what you want, that's fine. But the problem is they're killing people who are not Jewish. They're killing people who are Muslim. They're killing people in Israel. They're killing people because 20% of Israel is Muslim. There are other people who are foreigners, like Vietnamese people, Thai people, and it's like Hamas doesn't care. The suicide bombers, they don't care, and that's a problem too. So it's like when the Palestinian refugees went to different countries, like when they were refugees, they went to Syria, they went to Lebanon, they went to Jordan, Egypt. They caused terrorism in every single one of those countries, and all those in Kuwait, and all those countries had to launch attacks on the Palestinians, killing thousands. I think Kuwait got rid of 18% of their population who was Palestinian because they tried to help overthrow their government. So, so it's like the Hamas group, yeah, they're causing a lot of problems, but it's not like it's not like a war they're not just fighting against Israel. They're not just causing attacks on just the Jewish people. It's like so many people are being killed, and I don't know what to think about that. The other numbers, yeah, so 50% of Palestinians, from what I saw on that pro-Palestine website, they're for an intifada, and I would understand that. You have a country who's colonizing your land. You said they're genociding them. It's an apartheid state. Are they supposed to be okay with that? And I hear a lot of people saying like, hey, I don't support the resistance, but like I understand why they're resisting, right? But the problem with the resistance is the more you resist, the more you'll have resistance back, especially on one of the strongest militaries. And I think that what Hamas is trying to do is they're trying to do something so horrendous like October 7th that will cause Israel to actually kill too many civilians. So the world and people like you whose heart is, bleeding for them, who care about civilians, people like you will ask, stop sending US aid, and then the Muslim world will unite to destroy Israel. And Hamas is perfectly okay with using the civilians to accomplish that and using them as human shields. They didn't allow the civilians to go from north to the south. And you could say like, hey, why is Israel attacking the north? And we could say it's too much. Let's say that. Let us say that. Still, like Hamas should be able to allow the civilians to leave, but they're not. So that's my point. We're running like a little lower on time. Is there anything about your viewpoint that you feel like I do not understand?
What I know you like when I was like explaining my viewpoint, I know you said you didn't agree with me in one point specifically.
Yeah, the having people come together and like try to get rid of Hamas, like going into Gaza. Yeah, I didn't agree with that.
Oh yeah, that was the situation that I like made in my head.
The reason why it won't work is because more civilians will die, because the civilians actually dress like, you're not a police officer, are you?
Of course not.
Okay. There's a reason I'm asking. So a lot of people, it's just a side note. A lot of people, they hate police officers because they're like, well, why are you shooting this person who is like no threat to you? And that's a fair point. But if we also look at a police officer's perspective, we put our consciousness into the collective consciousness of police officers who are facing death, who could potentially die every single moment. The reason why you're supposed to empty a clip into somebody who you think is going to stab you, then you could say like, well, it's a baseball bat, it's a knife, who cares? Why would you shoot a full clip? Why not shoot his leg? The reason is because when they didn't do that, they got hurt. And one of the reasons is like, one, if somebody is pulling a knife or like a baseball bat at a police officer, they've decided basically that their own life doesn't matter. That's one. Two, they're on so many drugs or alcohol, sometimes their conscience is not even there, and they could hurt somebody even if you put a full clip into them. So that's why you see like a bunch of cops just shooting the fuck out of one person, because they know what that one person can do on all those drugs. So we cannot understand why somebody is doing something unless we put ourselves in their perspective. The same thing here. It's like, well, we could get a bunch of people and try to get rid of Hamas. We don't understand what the IDF and the Israeli population has to go through to deal with the terrorists. And that's why they have like a bomb that goes. So if they're shooting rockets from like a building, where they have ammunition there, they have terrorists there. What happens is Israel calls everybody in the building. They call the landlord. They have like the phone numbers and everything. They drop pamphlets from drones to tell people in Arabic to get out. They drop a bomb on the top, which is not a real bomb. It's just like a warning shot. And then after 15 minutes, they drop a real missile. So they do all of that because they've learned that like, hey, Hamas is going to use human shields, so we have to adapt. What we don't understand is exactly how the terrorists there fight, and they will use human shields and they will dress as civilians or as nurses and as doctors and shoot you with an AK-47. So doing that would actually cause more death than what the IDF is already doing, especially before. I think now what the IDF is doing is called punitive punishment. It's where it's like, we're not going to have you do this again. But before this war, that's how the IDF was actually trying to take out the terrorists. So that's why I don't agree with that, because I think more civilians will die that way when we have inexperienced people who don't know how to deal with terrorists try to fight them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can like logistically, I can see, like I can agree with you there.
Yeah, thank you. Um, it's a fuck situation, and that's why we're having this call. I want to have even more calls, and then like hopefully we could get people who are like on the extremes to like go towards the center and be like okay, I see more of the reality now, and let's find a better solution.
Hmm.
What else about your perspective do you feel like at this moment I'm not understanding?
Um, I don't like I don't think I think that yeah, like I think that we understand each other pretty good.
Okay, I
And I
would like,
wanted
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say that if you needed to do more interviews on people that are pro-Palestine, like I know a couple, like I can, like since you told me that most of the people you've interviewed are pro-Israel, like most of the people I know like have a similar, maybe not the same view as I do, but they have like a similar view. So if you want, maybe I can ask people and I could send you like their emails if they're interested to get in contact.
Yeah, so we could coordinate that through email, and actually that would be very helpful. And the fact that you're offering that support, I think it shows me that there's still hope and we can still have a peaceful solution. So that would be nice. Um, is it okay if I quickly give you my perspective, and then I would like for you to poke holes in my theories and my opinions? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Or you're
I'm
running low on time?
yeah, I'm running a little bit low on time.
Mhm.
Uh, but I wouldn't mind like if we set up like another group meeting, like maybe not a group meeting, but a meeting like one on one, and we could like go further.